Hey everybody, Tim here for another Marvel MCU movie, Phase 2, Number 5, Avengers, Age of Ultron. I can't even. So it was directed by Joss Whedon, who directed the first Avengers movie, but I really do feel like he upped the game for this one. Now, I know a lot of people actually kind of had issues for this movie, but I really liked it. I know a lot of people when this movie came out, like the Age of Ultron comic series, the mini series was out at the exact same time, which is funny because that was written by Brian Bendis, who was also my college professor when I was going to Portland State University. So I thought that was kind of funny. Completely different story. Same title, completely different story. And this kind of shows how a lot of people think, like, a lot of people dislike the DC movies, where they're like, oh, it doesn't follow the movies at all, whatever their excuses. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a fan of the DC movies, but not for that reason. It does not have to be the exact same as the comics to be a good story. It just has to be a good story. And for me, personally, I thought this was a fantastic story. I thought it was really, really well done for introducing new characters, for putting its own spin on it. And I mean, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has limitations because they don't have ownership of all of the characters or all of the rights for all of the characters. So, for example, this movie fully introduces Wanda and Pietro. But they're not mutants, they're not the children of Magneto, because Marvel doesn't have the rights to that. So they did the best they could, and personally, I thought they did a really, really good job. So, I mean, kind of starting from the top to work my way down. Like I said, it's directed by Joss Whedon. For anybody who's seen Buffy or Angel or anything like that, Joss Whedon is a big fan of long shots. And that goes all the way back to Buffy and Angel, because producers would make him cut. And they're like, we need you to cut this. We need you to cut that. And Joss would be like, fuck you. Like, no. He wanted as much screen time as he could, so he would film really long shots. So that way, they physically could not cut the shots because they were all one long shot and they would just go on for a full minute or more. And like the intro to this is a really good example. The first Avengers, a really good example, is when the camera pans around them. And for this, where all of the Avengers kind of come together for that long slow motion shot, Joss Whedon is really, really good, because he's been doing it for so many years, of planning out movements to have those long shots. And it was great. It was really well done. A lot of good foreshadow, for example, of where Stark says shit and Captain America says language. And then later on at the end of the movie where he says, like, you son of a bitch. Like, great foreshadow, great play on words, stuff like that. Like I said, we see the twins, which are enhanced. I think it's really interesting. I remember the first time I saw this, I was really disappointed that Clint gets taken out in the first couple of minutes. Because, I mean, the first time we meet him is in Thor. And then in Avengers, he's kind of a side character because he gets instantly taken over by Loki. And in this movie, he's instantly shot. And I was like, do they just not care about Hawkeye? Like, what's going on with that? So I thought that was interesting. Again, some of the funny, this was directed by Joss Whedon, who is famous for his script writing. Like, he wrote the script for Toy Story. He was brought in for script rewrites for, like, the movie Twister, because he's good with dialogue. And so some examples, like, you can clearly tell, like, Whedon dialogue. I'm a huge fan of Joss Whedon. So Firefly, everything, Dollhouse. And so, like, clips like the scene where Iron Man is like, please be a secret door, please be a secret door, please be a secret door. Yay! Like, I was like, that is Joss Whedon. 100%, that was Joss Whedon who wrote that line. I would bet everything I own on that. So we get that. We get the first instance of the Hulk lullaby, where he's like, hey, big guy, the sun's getting awfully low. Which, That's something we'll see in the next couple of movies. That's something you even see in, what is it, Deadpool 2. So it's kind of an interesting little like shout out to just how do we bring the Hulk back down. James Spader plays the voice of Ultron. I'm a big James Spader fan. Honestly, the first thing I think of for James Spader is actually Stargate, just because I love Stargate, the movie. But I mean, it goes all the way back to like the John Hughes, which, oh god, is it Pretty in Pink or 16 Candles? I always get the two mixed up. But still, it's fantastic, and it's such a perfect voice. Like, he does such a great job for it. We get a few references to Wakanda or Wakanda. Like, I just love how when Bruce is like, oh, it's Wakanda. I'm sorry, it's Wakanda. Like, a perfect shout out. Like, they clearly knew they were going to bring the Black Panther into this. But it's fantastic. Andy Serkis, who, I mean, obviously, the first time I saw this movie, I was like, it's Gollum? What? They brought him in this? I mean, he'd done King Kong. He's a good, prolific actor. But still, like, him just playing an actual actor, a character, no makeup, no CGI, nothing. I was like, wow, I'm okay with this. He does fantastic. He plays the character Claw, again, a very notable Black Panther villain. So I loved that. The visions, like, sequences where everybody gets their own vision, killed me. I'm not gonna lie. That's what brought me down. And there's a lot of debate or talk. I remember when this movie first came out, because everybody has their own little vision. Like, Captain America sees Peggy and they go for their last dance. Black Widow goes to her like training studio where she like learned to be an assassin, stuff like that. Thor sees Heimdall, and that's what people get, is Thor. Because supposedly, the rumor is, the last rumor I heard, so if anybody has something new or something concrete, I'd love to hear about it. The last thing I'd heard was Disney was like, no, we need Thor to do this. And they forced Joss Whedon to edit the movie to have Thor run off on his own adventure, which is when he goes and like takes the bath and goes on his own little vision quest thing. And that was never in the original script, and Joss Whedon didn't want to do it, which is part of the reason he was not involved for Phase 3. It's interesting. I mean, it could be. I'd love to see or know more about it. My favorite part is Clint, again, just like instantly, like kind of stabbing or electrocuting Wanda and being like, nope, I've done mind control, don't fuck with me. It was great, it was funny. The Hulkbuster outfit was fantastic, or Veronica. I'm not even gonna lie, Jordan, my husband, who I have forced to watch all of these movies with me, is the one who pointed out, he's like, that's Veronica, right? And I was like, shh, yeah, it's Veronica. He's like, is it like his actual girlfriend Betty? And I was like, yes, shut the fuck up, yeah. And he's like, Betty and Veronica? Isn't that like an Archie reference? And I was like, fuck. Didn't even catch it. It went right over my head that it was Veronica and Betty. So still, it was a nice little reference. I loved it. The whole point of like Tony trying to fight like the Hulk in Veronica, but saving civilians at the same time, where he's like, get everybody out. How fast can we buy this building? Was great. Again, it was kind of I hate to keep pounding on this dead horse, but it was a great reference to how un-DC this universe is, where they are trying to save the civilians, whereas DC's like, fuck it, let's kill everybody. So I was like, I'm totally okay with this. Seeing characters like Fury come back is great, and especially with like the farm of like Hawkeye's farm, where his family's like secret and hidden. I really, really liked it. Quicksilver and Wanda stopping the train is probably one of my favorite scenes, just watching them do everything that they can. Now, a lot of people have also complained about that, where we see Quicksilver's like out of breath, and they're like, look at the Quicksilver in the X-Men universe, he's not out of breath. I mean, he's a mutant who can probably go faster, whereas this Pietro is limited because he's only enhanced. So I liked it. I liked where he was out of breath. I thought that added more to the character where it's like he can't do this forever, but he's trying to go out of his way to save people. So I actually really liked that aspect of it. The scene where they're like trying to stop it ends up being the Vision, but where they stop the Vision from evolving, where Tony and Steve are fighting. Did they know they were doing Civil War shortly after this? Who knows? But it was a really great reference to that, to just kind of see that first start of seeing like, oh, maybe we can be friends, but we can also be enemies at the same time. So I really, really like that. At the same time, the big fight where Wanda puts up walls. So granted, this movie came out like 2015. WandaVision's already out. But we see Wanda doing walls and Vision doing the mind control thing. So I absolutely loved it. I thought it was really, really great to just like all of these characters developing. So the whole aspect of Marvel changing movie trailers or previews to get people interested goes back further than this movie. But this is one of the great examples of like that first scene where it goes around them all defending. Wanda and Quicksilver are not in that, so they physically change the trailers just to get like you get the spirit of it, but it's not actually in the movie type situation. So I love it. We get more of that as we keep going down the MCU, but this is the first really, really good example. We see the first new headquarters in upstate New York, and then probably one of my favorites, like after credits scenes, short, sweet, to the point, only a couple of seconds, of Thanos putting on the glove and saying, fine, I'll do it myself. And you're like, oh shit, like it's about to happen. We're getting to the end of this. So, I mean, here we are. We are so far into this. We're almost to the end. We're 11 movies into the MCU at this point, but absolutely loving it. I thought this was a really, really good movie. I loved Ultron. I thought he was a great villain. I loved Vision, like just watching Jarvis become Vision. I mean, granted, in the original comics, like Adam Warlock and other characters were involved, but I think this movie did a really, really good job of just taking a huge story, you pack it into like 2 hours, and you're just fine. So I'm curious what other people think about this. This is the last of Joss Whedon's involvement. And I mean, granted, we do have one more movie for the phase 2. But I mean, this is the last really big chunk. So curious what everybody thinks. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for subscribing. It means so much to me. And I'll see you guys next time for Ant-Man.